The faith to recognize God in our lives. For this Sunday, the Gospel passage comes from Mark chapter 6, 1 to 6. How to recognize God in our life. We read, Jesus returning to his hometown where he faces skepticism and rejection from those who knew him growing up. Despite his wisdom and the miracles he performed, the people were unable to see beyond their familiarity with him. Their lack of faith prevented them from recognizing the divine presence among them. We have been journeying through the Markan Gospel. We saw Jesus calming the storms. We saw Jesus healing 2 miracles last week Sunday, and this week the prophet is rejected in his hometown, and he was amazed at the lack of faith. The passage from Mark chapter 6 highlights the struggle between familiarity and faith. The people of Nazareth were so accustomed to Jesus as the carpenter's son that they could not fathom his divine mission. Very many times we struggle to fathom what is God's plan in my life. I have a mission, I have a goal, I have a target. But what is God's plan in that mission? It comes by constantly aligning God's will with our will. Their preconceived notions and lack of faith blinded them to the miracles and teachings Jesus brought to them. So, why did not they recognize God in their life and rejected the prophet? The 3 basic elements of familiarity, faith, and prophet. How can we overcome familiarity in our lives? How can we cultivate faith in our lives? And how can we welcome the prophet? In our daily lives, we may encounter God's presence in familiar places and people. We strive to see beyond our biases and recognize the divine in the ordinary. Unfortunately, we live in today a lot of fear, a lot of biases, a lot of prejudgments, criticisms. The question for this week is, are there any areas in our lives where familiarity has hindered our faith? Second, cultivating faith. Faith is crucial in recognizing and experiencing God's work among us. Just as Jesus could perform few miracles in Nazareth due to their unbelief, our lack of faith can limit our experience of God's blessing. What is faith? Faith is a journey from a known to an unknown. How do we strengthen our faith? By spending time in prayer and reading scriptures, asking God to increase our faith and help us to see His hand in all aspects of our life. Welcoming the prophet. We are called to honor and respect those who bring God's message to us, even if they come from a humble or familiar backgrounds. Prophet speaks the truth. Prophet speaks on behalf of God. Sometimes it is very truth, a blunt truth. Prophets are not biased. They don't take sides. They don't live in fear. Prophets are the one who speak the truth. Let's reflect how we can support and encourage those who are called to serve and lead our faith community. Let us pray. Lord, grant us the faith to recognize your presence among us, even in the most familiar faces and places. Help us to overcome our doubts and biases and to welcome your prophets with open hearts. Increase our faith so we may fully experience the miracles you wish to perform in our lives. Jesus was amazed at the lack of faith. The faith is to recognize God in our lives.